Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and in this video, going to be sharing with you my thoughts on the level 60 Bard. That's right, the job I abandoned back in 2.4 just happens to be one of the first jobs I've gotten to 60. Real quick, no, this is not my main character, it is an alternate character. I'm not going to explain why I have an alternate character with a level 60 Bard, just know that that's what it is. Now also, this is going to be broken up into two videos. The first one's going to be what I just said, basically. We're going to be going over the new abilities, I'm going to share with you my thoughts on them and showcase what they look like. The next video I do is going to be Bard Opener, one of the many potential ones, because there's a lot of them out there that all seem to have the similar result. We're going to be talking about the priority system for all of your abilities, and we're going to be talking about useful cross classes, as well as some useful tips for the new Bard, because there's a lot of little tiny things you need to get to know as a Bard now. So, let's talk about the Bard itself. Now, a lot of people want to know what I think about Wanderer's Minuet specifically. This video has been the most requested video since the expansion came out, right next to, like, when are you going to do a Dark Knight guide or something like that. So real quick, before I share with you my actual thoughts on them, let's actually go over some of the abilities and their changes. Now, looking at the old abilities, there were some changes. The biggest one probably to Barrage. Now, Barrage used to affect our auto attacks, and for 10 seconds, make us auto attack 3 times every time an auto attack would go off. But with Wanderer's Minuet being added into the game, which we'll talk about in a little bit, Barrage got reworked so that it could be useful no matter which stance you're in. Now it makes it so that your next weapon skill hits 3 times, although none of those hits can actually crit. So, to be clear, we need to distinguish what is a weapon skill and what is an ability. Now, if you hover over one of your skills and you look right under the name, in this case we're looking at Venomous Bite, right under the name it says the word weapon skill. Those are abilities that are affected by Barrage. Now, something like Repelling Shot is an ability. As you can see right here under Repelling Shot, it says ability. So just know it doesn't affect anything that says ability, it only affects things that say weapon skill. And we'll be talking about Barrage pretty in depth in the next video, although there's not really much depth to it. Now, the other big change was to Reign of Death. It is now an ability off the global cooldown, it is instant cast, has no TP cost, and shares a recast time with Bloodletter. Now, this basically means that, yes, it does indeed benefit from the Bloodletter proc. So you can get now Reign of Death procs as well as Bloodletter proc, since whenever you get a Bloodletter proc, Reign of Death is going to reset as well. This makes it extremely useful in AoE situations as long as you have a dot on one of the targets. It can give you an AoE damage reset, which is great. So get used to actually hitting this button pretty often if there's ever more than one target available for you to hit. Now, there was also a change to Straight Shot, or I should say the trait Straighter Shot, but before we go over the change to that, this would be the trait right here, we should probably talk about the new skill, since it's a change that specifically comes with the new skills. So, looking at our skills right here, the very first one is by far the most controversial of them all, the Wanderer's Minuet. It is a new song that the bards can sing that acts as a self-buff, while also granting several enfeeblements for the damage trade-off. Now, it can be used with other songs, so you can sing, let's say, this and Foe's Requiem at the same time. It can be turned off very, very quickly, although it does have a 15-second period of time where it can't be turned off after it's been turned on. It doesn't drain your MP over time, and the buff it actually gives to just the bard themselves is it increases their damage dealt by 30%. However, that comes at the cost of them no longer being able to auto attack and adding a cast time to all the archer and bard skills on your hotbar. This has become the reason why you may be hearing terms out there such as bow mage or bow wizard, because it basically turned black mages into a bard. Now, the song does have times when it's not useful and times when it is useful, but we'll talk about those a little bit later as I share my opinions about it. There are also 2 abilities that are only usable in Wanderer's Minuet. You have Imperial Arrow, 220 potency attack. Very strange though, this actually is a weapon skill that is not on the global cooldown, which I'm pretty sure it's the only weapon skill in the game that's not on the global cooldown. It's got a 15-second recast timer, costs 60 TP, and even though it says its cast is instant right now, it's because I don't have Wanderer's Minuet up, it has a cast time of about 1.5 seconds-ish. Now, Iron Jaws is another ability we have only usable in Wanderer's Minuet, just like Imperial Arrow. Now, its base potency is only 100. However, if you use it on a target that has Venomous Bite and Wind Bite, it will refresh the dots to their full duration, 18 seconds. So, after applying your dots, you'll basically just want to maintain them on the boss at all times with Iron Jaws. You want to minimize ever having to recast Wind Bite and Venomous Bite on a target. Unless, of course, a boss goes invincible or jumps away and there's no targets available to you. Now, it is worth mentioning that this skill is very responsive, so you may see things that I'll show you in a little bit. I won't spoil that ahead of time. So, Wanderer's Peen is the next ability. I've googled the pronunciation. It's something like that. This is probably the least useful skill we have right now. You can cast it. It's a song that you can cast on a single party member. And it will make it so that for the next 30 seconds, if they get some sort of debuff on them, like a poison or a paralyze, this will instead absorb it and it won't happen on them. So far, the only real use I've seen this used for is you place it on warriors before the pull of a boss so they don't get pacified from Berserk. That is by far the most use I've seen out of this ability so far. And yeah, I don't know. It barely deserves a spot on the bar if not for having a warrior in the party. And then our final ability is Sidewinder. This is basically the Bard's Fester. It is a base potency of 100. However, for each dot you have on it, Venomous Bite and Wind Bite being the only two you have, it goes up by 75 potency, up to a maximum of 250. So, 1 minute cooldown, instant cast. It's an ability, not a weapon skill. So, you'll basically be using this on cooldown whenever it's available. So now that we've gone over these abilities in Wanderer's Minuet, let's go back to the Straighter Shot proc. If you go to the Heavier Shot trait, which is the trait that actually gives you Straighter Shot procs, it now says that if under the effect of Wanderer's Minuet, your next straight shot will also require no cast time. This is very, very vital when it comes to weaving your off the global cooldown abilities as a new bard. But before I share with you my thoughts on all the new abilities and all that fun stuff, let's just go showcase what they look like real quick. Alright, so we got a dummy right here. So real quick, just to show you, you can see I have Reign of Death on my hotbar right here. So let's just do that. You can see, shares a cooldown with Bloodletter. If I get a Bloodletter proc, Reign of Death will reset as well. It's also worth mentioning, I suppose, that Quick Knock and Wide Volley no longer have that proc system where if you use one, there's a possibility you'll get a free version of the next one. So it's really TP effective to use Quick Knock if you can get into position to actually use it. It's 20 less TP, it's the same amount of damage, so try to get into position for Quick Knocks if possible to save some TP, but don't be like a mile away and be like, oh, let me run up to use a Quick Knock. Now, you'd probably want to work your way up towards the enemy slowly using your other abilities and then get to Quick Knock them. Now, also we have Barrage. Barrage, you can see I'm auto-attacking right now. Barrage doesn't affect those auto-attacks. You can see I'm still only auto-attacking once. However, the very next weapon skill that I use hits 3 times. You saw it right there. None of those hits can crit, but it basically triples the potency of your next weapon skill. So it's still a really, really strong cooldown. You're pretty much always going to be using it with Imperial Arrow when you're in Wanderer's Minuet, so don't ever use it on Heavy Shot. Just know that was just to show what it did. Now, Wanderer's Minuet. This is where things are going to get controversial. As you can see, it is an instant cast time, and it can be cast off the global cooldown. Big thing to note, you see how it's on cooldown right now? I can't actually turn it off for the 15 seconds it's on cooldown. Yes, I'm even trying to click the buff off of my bar. See? Can't be done. Just won't work. Nothing. Has to be clicked off with the ability itself. So we'll turn it back on, and I'll show you the cast times, the ever so lovely cast times everyone loves. So as you can see, these are the cast times that you will have under Wanderer's Minuet. You can see that the cast times are only about 1.5 seconds, and the global cooldown's 2.5 seconds. So you have about a second of downtime where you're able to use abilities like Bloodletter, or you're able to, go ahead and place like a flaming arrow on the ground or something like that. But it is a little tricky to get used to at first. There's different interactions with different abilities that change a lot when you're in Wanderer's Minuet. Now, you also notice not auto-attacking, and of course, just like a Black Mage, if I was to move... okay, bad example, because apparently I lagged a little bit there. If you were to move, your cast times would be interrupted. So, you gotta really know when to buckle down and stand still when you're trying to use Wanderer's Minuet. Now, to show off the abilities in Wanderer's Minuet, you have Imperial Arrow, has a cast time, costs TP, but then it goes on its own 15-second-ish recast time. It is affected by skill speed, so I'm just saying 15 seconds is the base. But not so bad. It's pretty hard to weave in between abilities. I mean, as you can see, you know, it has a 1.47 second cast time, and you only have a second in between the global cooldown. So sometimes it'll end up looking like this, where you're just non-stop casting for like 3 abilities in a row. But it doesn't really matter. It's still something you should be using whenever it comes off cooldown. Don't sit there and just not use it because it doesn't fit so cleanly in between the global cooldown. It's really, really good after those straighter shot procs, since you have the entire 2.5 second off the global cooldown to actually use it. But don't save it for that either. It's just something you're going to want to be using as it becomes available. Now we also have Iron Jaws, the one that extends the duration of our dots. So I just wanted to show the dots. I don't know why I'm applying straight shot first. But so as you can see, my dots, they're ticking down, they're ticking down. So we have Iron Jaws right here. It's going to deal some damage and refresh both the dot durations to their fullest. Now, I should be saving this for the next video, and I'll probably make mention of it in the next video, but Iron Jaws is by far the most responsive ability I've ever played within the game, especially after playing Ninja. You'll notice that my dots, oh, looks, they're about to fall off. I'll only do Iron Jaws. Okay. So it's not delayed like that. That's good to know. It's good to know that as long as the icon is there, you'll be able to refresh them, right? Let's see if I can get the timing down. Look what can happen sometimes with Iron Jaws. Your dots can fall off of the target, and Iron Jaws can still reapply them. And I can explain that, thankfully, but... See that? They were off the target, still reapplied them. The main reason was my cast finished before the what are they called? Before the icons under the target disappeared. So because the animation had started by the time they were still on the target, it registered them as on the target. So it's actually taking... The animation delay on the ability actually comes in handy for the first time, I think, in this entire game. So that's what it is. You'll want to maintain your dots with Iron Jaws the entire fight after they're applied to a single target. You really don't want to have to go and waste time recasting both Wind Bite and Venomous Bite. You save TP with Iron Jaws, you do more damage because you're able to fit in other abilities more often with Iron Jaws. It's just a great ability overall. Wanderer's Peen real quick, just so you can see it cast. Cast it on myself. Gives me this little shield around me. Impervious to Next Enfeeblement. You know, if I were to get poisoned right now, it would wear off and I wouldn't get poisoned. So, fancy. Just use it on warriors pre-pull, or if you know that a warrior is going to be berserking and there's a break in the fight, like you're not doing anything, so it doesn't matter if you have to take the 3 seconds to cast. It'll take some getting used to on a fight-per-fight basis for most people, but that is the #1 use right now. And then, of course, you have Sidewinder. Sidewinder can be used in between the global cooldowns as it is an ability. Now, one thing, just like Fester, if you're a summoner, you understand this, don't use it right after using a dot because it won't register right away. So you can see it right there, Sidewinder proc. Alright, and that's it. That's what it does. It does a bunch of damage, does more damage, you have dots on the target. So, it's really powerful. You'll want to be using it every 60 seconds, and you should have dots up 100% of the time, so don't worry about that. As long as you have 2 dots up, hit them with the Sidewinder, you should be good to go. So, other than that, most people really just want to know my thoughts on it. Of course, they want to know, you guys want to know the opener, you guys want to know the rotations, all that stuff, but if I have to do that all in one video, we'll be here forever. So, my thoughts on the new Bard. It's a little clunky. Some abilities do not interact well with other abilities, and trying to fit certain things in between the very short global cooldown is extremely awkward. Now, I can't complain too much. Black Mages, they have been dealing with that issue for a very, very, very long time. So I'm not going to sit here and complain and be like, I don't want it this way, because Black Mages are going to hate me for it. I will say this, though, it doesn't feel like I'm playing the same Bard from 2.0 at all. Now, Wanderer's Minuet, is it something you should keep up 100% of the time? If you're really good and you know the fight really well, yeah, because you should know exactly where you're able to stand to minimize movement. Now, of course, there's always the mechanic that you can run into, and there's always the chance that there will be some movement in a fight. And there are little tricks for that, but, I mean, if you really need to move for like 6, 7, 8 seconds in a row, you can just turn off Wanderer's Minuet, turn it right back on. Just make sure that when you turn it on, you're going to be standing still for the next 15 seconds. Otherwise, you're going to be pretty SOL when it comes to this one. I'm a fan of it now that I've played it for like 5, 6 days at this point. Maybe a little bit longer, actually. More like a week as I've been leveling it up. It's actually quite grown on me. It's definitely got a higher skill ceiling now, understanding where to use all of your off the global cooldown abilities, how to maximize them, how to make sure you're not letting your dots fall off with Iron Jaws. It's a much more attentive job now, and I'm actually a big fan of that. You still have all the same mobility you had before, but now it's about knowing the fight so much that you don't just abuse that mobility. It requires the player to have an additional skill of knowing the fight or knowing their positioning and how it's important to the fight. And overall, I'm a fan of that. I like those I like pretty much most of the changes in the expansion. And originally, Wanderer's Minuet, before they buffed it, was a little bit controversial. It was on the lower end. It didn't really seem like worth going all the way out of your way to use. And in most practical fights, it was a DPS loss. With the recent changes, with it being off the global cooldown, with you being able to weave it in between global cooldowns if you ever need to turn it off, it has become significantly more useful. On top of that, hitting a big Sidewinder or hitting a barraged Imperial Arrow, like, look at this. Tell me this isn't satisfying. That's so satisfying in the middle of the fight. When you're fully buffed with a Potion of Dexterity on, and you hit a barrage Imperial Arrow or a crit Sidewinder, it is one of the most satisfying things that I've done in the game. Very similar to the Black Mage satisfying when you get the Raging Strikes X-Pot Firestarter proc. Now it's just Fire 4 or Flare or whatever the heck. I don't even know. Fire 4, yeah. You get the crit Fire 4s and you get them back to back to back to back. Overall, I'm a fan of the new Bard. I actually like it a bit more than the 2.0 Bard. But like I said, there is some clunkiness to it. I will explain that in the next video because there are tips and tricks to get around the clunkiness. It's just going to take some practice. Overall, let me know what your thoughts are on the Bard and the Wanderer's Minuet. Do you like the change? Do you not like the change? Just let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section of the video below. Thank you for watching. I will see you all in the next video where we will discuss openers, priority systems, and some tips and tricks like I was talking about. So, thank you for watching. I'll see you all in the next video, and until then, take care.